So I'm diving into this motherfucker. I'm cussing right off the jump. That's not the thing, Josh. I go vintage shopping all the time. I was in Los Angeles this past weekend, and I'm going to the store, and I'm going through shirts, and I score one, and I pay a little bit of money. And I'm going to tell you, I love the band. We're not talking about the band, but I was like, I got the pod with Michael Shannon. I think it would be apropos. That's not even their music at all. Didn't they do the song to Mortal Kombat?
That's amazing. I love that shirt. Wow.
Great shirt, great band, and that is what threw me for the curveball when they told me that you were coming on for the Who Leeds, because we had just done Murmur, which I know you've jammed out to. We've done
Cool.
we actually did Automatic for the People with Mike Mills, which was really rad, especially because, obviously I know you've met REM. Like, they're just the salt of the earth, the coolest guys.
Yeah.
And I think didn't we do, Jer, when we started doing it with Spotify, our first one that we did was Document. So
I think that's right. Yeah.
I mean, we got a little bit of time, so I'm going to start this off. I can tell you're doing good. You look phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Why are you here for the Who and not for REM?
Well, I mean, first of all, I just missed Murmur.
You did.
I didn't know you were doing it, but my musical taste is pretty expansive in all directions, and I adore the Who. I've been listening to Who for a long time. Yeah, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a band that I didn't have some curiosity about, unless it was like really crappy music. But what?
I don't know if it would be negative.
Oh,
what's crappy to Michael Shannon?
Crappy music?
Yeah, what's crappy?
Uninteresting music that has no originality or dimension to it. That just like it was made by one of those little robots that's delivering food in LA right now.
What are
those little? Have you seen these little robots that go down the? They look like little Star Wars droids, and they
do.
Down the sidewalk, and they're delivering food to people. And I said the last time I was in LA, I saw one of those, and it freaked me the heck out. I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah,
I saw it in Santa Monica for the first time. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah. So, yeah, the kind of music those things would make. I'm not, but, yeah, anybody who's got a pulse and an interesting idea, I'm all ears. Yeah.
It's like, I am delivering these falafels to East 32nd Street. Also, check out my new track.
Yes. Exactly.
So we have a little bit of time, and what's cool about doing this podcast, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the record, we're going to talk about your life, we're going to see how the album and everything kind of goes together. But when we do this, we used to go through every song, and some of the episodes would be about 3 hours long. And I know you don't have that much time. And what's great about this album is that it's 6 songs. So let's just cut the mustard, dive right into it. And I'm going to tell the audience that's listening, if you haven't listened to this record, hopefully you listen to it, and you should listen to it because it is phenomenal. I worked with my buddy DJ Morty Coyle to go over this. So like let's just dive into this because I think we can actually get through all tracks. So I want to catch everybody up. And how much you know about the history of the Who, obviously, because like when this record came out, they're in a weird phase. Not weird, but per se, but they went from being a rock band to suddenly being like high society because of these rock operas. So the Who has done their mini opera, a quick one, While He's Away, as well as perhaps the first concept record. The Who Sell Out, so the full-length rock opera Tommy was a continuation of the ethos of pop as high art, much to the delight of their manager, Kit Lambert, who really pushed that angle to the public. They had been accepted by the culture beyond what other rock acts had. And I loved thinking about that because it was like the Who being this band, Michael, that's like, they're in your face. They're rock and roll. They're destroying shit. People are getting dressed up in like tuxes to go see the Who. And So at the time, the Beatles had just done Sgt. Pepper, but they didn't tour, and it was a concept idea. It wasn't even as cohesive as the Who Sellout, which they had done before Sgt. Pepper. Tommy was complicated and thematic and nostalgic and pushed a lot of emotional buttons. They became legitimate and played it outside of the normal concert venues. People went to the theater to see them dressed up, like I said, in tuxedos and evening dresses, including audiences in America and England who may not have been fans, but came for the experience. And then after they did Woodstock and Isle of Wight, they realized they didn't want people to pigeonhole them. And they didn't want to be thought it was like hoity-toity. So they were still they wanted to show everybody they were still the honorable, oh, we can blow you the fuck away. We're the biggest rock band in the world. So they do this record. So let me ask you a question before I ask you a question about your life. Like, what are your thoughts on the Who right now? Like, where do you see from going from starting the way they did, going into the rock operas, and now, like, do you still feel this is the Who being the Who, or is this them trying to prove something? Like, do you see it or feel that in this record when you listen to it?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say tell a little story really quick because
Please.
just responding to what you just said. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I discovered the Who.
Yeah.
When I was a little boy in Kentucky, um, my mother had remarried. She was married to a fellow named Big Mike. He was Big Mike, and I was just Mike. And we were living in a house. They had 3 kids together, so there was my mom and Big Mike and the 4 of us kids. And in the basement, Big Mike had a very small stereo and a little crate with a few records in it. Not much of a collection, but the 2 records that he had in there, and it just blew my mind that you said this was one of them was Sergeant Pepper's and the other one was Tommy. And I remember going down to the basement, and he didn't curate this for me at all because we didn't really get along very well. But I would just go down there by myself and kind of look through his records, and those 2 covers just stopped me. And like the other stuff was just boring, like Kenny Loggins or some nonsense. I mean, sorry.
Hey, danger zone, dude. Danger zone.
But these 2 records, they looked magical to me. They looked otherworldly to me. They looked like something that I hadn't seen before or could comprehend. So I would listen to them, and that's how I discovered the Who for the first time. But the thing I love about the Who is that, and I can't help but I guess relate it to what I do as an actor. I don't just go out and play the same part over and over and over again. The responsibility of an artist is to keep reinventing themselves and moving in different directions and covering new territories. So a lot of the musical groups or artists that I appreciate are the ones that show the widest geography in terms of what they're able to accomplish musically. And that can be scary. It's a lot easier to find a formula and just stick with it, but I think the restlessness of this group is really what makes them eternal, which makes them iconic is the restless spirit of them, and the kind of joyous fury of the Who. There's like a joy and a fury in equal parts. A lot of times when you think of fury or anger, it's got like a negative connotation, and it's based in like a violence or like wanting to destroy something. But this is like a joyful fury. Is the way I was thinking about when I was listening to the record this morning. What they do, and I loved what you said about the tuxedos because. And I've been listening to the expanded version, which is longer than 6 songs, but whatever. But what a charismatic MC Daltrey is for the
Yes.
whole, in the way and how self-deprecating they are. There's like oh, this was our first number one song in Germany, or this was we hit 13 with this one, Lucky 13. Just
Yeah.
really, and I think that's a very British attribute, to be kind of like not playing up your own significance too much, to keep a sense of humor about it. But yeah, anyway, I feel like now I'm just spinning off into the ether, so I'll let you take the reins.
No, but you're 100% right. Everything you say, you feel that from the band, and it's them kind of coming back. I wanted to spin it to you because you've done extensive live theater as well as theatrical and television. Do you have a preference between the energy of you and the audience who are in the moment and hopefully not recording, that will live on in their memories versus filming something that will be captured and edited and processed and kind of just sort of live on in immortality?
Yeah, I mean that's changed over the years. I mean, for a long time, I definitely preferred theater to film. There was no doubt about it. But the longer I've been working on film and television, the more I've come to appreciate it as an art form. Working on it, and now I've actually directed a film, and that frankly was one of my favorite things I've ever done. And it's very technical. It can be very technical. A lot of times I describe it as like doing camera stuff is like it's like surgical. It's very precise, and you're trying to get so many different things right at the same time. And although there are filmmakers that break that rule as well, that just they throw caution to the wind and seem to relish in making chaos, but that hasn't been my experience so much working in the industry. But yeah, there's something that happens in theater. I've done certain plays that what's really impressive is when you do a play and
Mhm.
like 10 years later somebody walks up to you and says, I remember seeing that play, and they
Yeah.
have nothing to reference. They can't go back and say, oh, I have a VHS of you doing that play.
Yeah.
Say, I remember the night that I came to see that play, and that's an astonishing thing. But in terms of the actual energy, sometimes the audience lifts you and carries you, and sometimes they try and go out of their way to make it as difficult as possible and everything else.
Sure.
The benefit you have on camera is that you're not fighting something. You're not necessarily being juiced up by something. You're just there in that thing, and there's a certain solemnity, and I don't know. There's a boundary to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel, and I have another follow-up question with that, but do you feel like when listening to this record, the Who, are really putting all of the hoity-toityness, they're going back to their roots? Do you feel like they're reaching back to what the Who, like you said, that fury in this record? Do you feel that?
I think so. I mean, it's really interesting that they're doing it in where the location that they're doing it in. I think a lot of times when you see live at Leeds, you assume it's in like some coliseum or something, and they're doing it.
Sure.
I mean, it's basically like a large kind of classroom or like the refectory, whatever the
Yeah.
heck it is. But I've seen pictures of it. It's not a big place. I mean, was it even like an actual theater? Did they have seat? I mean, it seems like a kind of a large meeting room.
Yeah, Jared, can you find that out exactly what the
Yeah.
capacity and everything with the venue was? Um,
But they're
I
definitely they're playing for college students, right?
yeah, I think so.
University, yeah, and so it's like that definitely seems like reclaiming a youthful spirit and enthusiasm in the music.
Yeah,
For
it
sure.
definitely feels
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I can't let it pass because it's such a huge movie, but we're basically the same age. And Groundhog Day was your first movie, and it was such a huge movie. Did you know Bill before that, or did you get some time with him, or did you just kind of go in and say, I'm gonna shut up, just do my part and just work?
No, I had never met Bill Murray. I met I met Harold Ramis in the callback when I was auditioning, but that was it. And I was very young, and I was very quiet. I didn't want to disturb anybody. Um, but I had the great fortune of getting to, I don't have a lot of lines in the movie, but our characters are in the restaurant, in the
Yeah.
diner. So every time they shoot a scene in the diner, we had to be there just in case you saw us in the background. So I actually wound up being there for a significant amount of time, and I would get to go there and just sit and watch, Bill Murray improvise all day long, and that was a pretty incredible experience. But no, I didn't really know, and I hadn't. There's a whole improv world in Chicago, Second City, and all that, and that wasn't really my world. I was more
Yeah.
in these funky little storefront theaters doing obscure plays that nobody heard of and didn't really even want to see, but we did.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day was it's my favorite movie, so it's cool to be able to ask you about it. To get your start. You feel like on a movie with like all this star power and everything like
Yeah.
that. Like I don't know, what was that like for you? Is it all downhill from here? Is that did you pinch yourself a little
Yeah.
Oh,
bit?
geez. No, I wouldn't say that. No, but I just remember how nice Harold Ramis was. He was so nice to me.
I love
He
that.
actually, one day at lunch, he he came up to me and he said, "Hey, you want to go play pool?" And when you're directing a movie, like the demands on your time and energy and brain are just never ending. And for this guy to come up to, I mean, I'm basically like a day player and say, "Hey, let's," instead of me like sitting down and eating and looking at my notes or whatever, I'm going to go play pool with this kid and just ask him if he's enjoying himself. What does he think? Um, so I was very sad when he passed because
Yeah.
he was one of the kindest people I've ever worked with. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine what that's like to be the young actor and have the director come up and especially someone like Harold Ramis, who is like so important to comedy and improv and sketch. It's just to get that time with him is really great.
Yeah.
All right, so I can't. So you've also played, portrayed some pretty indelible characters in your career, and like the Who after Tommy, did you ever feel like you were risking getting pigeonholed? Like, because that's what I'm saying, where the Who are just now in this high art, and it's like they're being pushed to keep doing that. Have you ever felt that way? Because you've done so much unique shit, like when you were on Boardwalk Empire. Like, what was your live at Leeds moment to shake things up?
There you go.
It's funny. What was my live at Leeds moment? Uh, it's hard to say. Starting out the way I did in Chicago, and knowing so many people, peers of mine that are still in Chicago, still, unfortunately not able to pay the rent by, just showing up and acting. I feel very grateful that I've been able to find some sort of financial security and that I get to work, that
Mhm.
people keep asking me to show up and work. So the idea of, trying to be choosy or selective it's difficult to be comfortable with that as an actor. And it's acting's very different than music. I've said this before, like music, there's a lot more self-determination. It's like you and whoever you're making the music with against the world, and you're creating this vision together, and you have to fight like hell to get the world to give a crap. As actors, we're participating in things that other people are setting up. Other people are writing, other people are producing, other people are directing. We're just asking for like an invitation, like, "Hey, can I come in? Can I
Yeah.
be a part of this?" So it's um I this might sound kind of obnoxious, but I say one of the reasons actors make great waiters is because we're servants. Like that's what we do. We serve.
Hmm.
We could show up. You have a script. You have a story you want to tell. Here I am. I'll help you. I'll help you do that. Um, so I think if in terms of what we're talking about with the Who, they really are the sum total of what that is. Like they've created it from soup to nuts. It's all their vision. It's all their music. They've written it. They've made it sound the way they want it to sound. So it's hard for me to make too much of a comparison. But there was a certain point, I guess, where I started to read things and say, like, you know what? No, I don't. I don't think I need to do that at this point. But it was quite a ways
Into your
into
career?
yeah. It took a long time to learn how to say no. Yeah,
Good, good.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right,
that's very human.
one last question before we dig into the songs, and is like it's sort of who related also. So you portrayed General Zod in Man of Steel, and that character had been previously played by Terrence Stamp, whose brother Chris Stamp was co-manager of the Who. Did you ever get to talk to Terrence about the role, or have any apprehension about playing an identifiable character that might uh, compare to his portrayal?
Mhm. Well, full disclosure, I've never met Terrence Stamp.
Oh wow,
I've never I've never met him. Um, when I met with Zach to talk about doing the movie, I literally felt like I was being pranked. I was like, "There's no way this is actually happening right now." He invited me to his home in Pasadena, and I was sitting there in his living room. It was a beautiful panoramic view out the windows, and these little hummingbirds flying around in the bushes, and I felt like I was on acid or something. And then he starts talking to me about it, and of course, I had seen Terrence do it in the movies when I was a kid, and I just couldn't really visualize me doing this. I mean, I was beyond flattered and flabbergasted that I was even being asked to do it, but inside, secretly, I was very nervous about it because I hadn't done anything like that before. So I guess the way I looked at it, I feel like when Terrence did it, and he's incredible, unimitable, beautiful, love it. But it was very much, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't super grounded in an actual situation. Like
yeah,
my way into it is like I'm not playing a villain. I'm playing a guy who's in the army. He's in the army of Krypton. He's the top army guy, and
yeah,
his planet is blows up, and all most of his civilization is dead. And he's asking himself, "Can I? Is there a second chapter for us?" And that's it. And he's not like he's not even necessarily interested in scaring people or being a bad guy. All he's trying to do is figure out can I build this again or not?
yeah,
Just look at it from that point of view, then it's pretty simple and it's
yeah,
pretty relatable. It's not like some highfalutin or I try to approach everything that I do with like a very down to earth kind of practical. Like, what is this person or alien or whatever? What is this? What are they trying to do? What are they actually trying to do? Like, if this wasn't a movie and it was just actually happening, what would I
yeah.
do? And if you do that, then you can kind of slot yourself into a variety of situations.
Yeah, dude, that's everything my acting coach has ever said. It was like perfectly summed up right there. All right, I've got some of the background on the record before we dive into the song. So the shows were performed on Valentine's Day 1970 at Leeds and on 215 at Hull, but technical problems with the recordings from the Hull gig. The bass player had not been recorded on some of the songs. Obviously you've seen the artwork to this record, like even down to that, like it looks like a bootleg, the way that the stamp is like kind of not even really on there. The packaging looks like it's something that you just bought almost at a flea market. We've got even to quoted Geddy Lee from Rush saying, even today, Live at Leeds sounds so alive. It's a real piece of that period of rock. It's like a bootleg, everything down to the artwork, the tone. It is so raw. This is also the fourth time we're going to be talking about The Who on the podcast. We've had David Wild do a quick one at 384. We've done Quadrophenia at 267 with Judd Apatow, and we've had Eddie Pepitone back at 237 with My Generation. We also still have The Who Sell Out, which is a little bit lower. We have Tommy coming in at 96, and then Who's Next at 28. Before I get into Young Man's Blues, is this your, is this rank in your favorite of the Who records?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, and it's fascinating when I listen to it because I hear so much of the other music around it inside of it. Like it either has inspired so much music or coexisted with so much music in this period. Like, for example, I'll just cut to the chase. Sometimes, particularly when no one's singing, I'm like, oh, this could be the Hendrix band.
Yeah.
Really, that rhythm section in Twistle and Moon. I'm like, oh, this could be like Hendrix at some festival or something. Or all of a sudden it'll start sounding like Black Sabbath or something.
Yeah.
It's like Mercury. It's just constantly changing. And this is a perfect example. Young Man's Blues. Like you just
Yeah.
don't. You feel like you're on a merry-go-round that somebody is just spinning faster and faster. Like some wicked uncle is like, I'm going to see if I can make you throw up or something.
Yeah.
But in a nice way. Yeah.
Yeah. This is Young Man's Blues is a Mose Allison song. Starts the album. It's one of 3 covers, yet it sort of nails the whole album subtext that really exemplifies young male frustration. Basically, it's a standard part of the Who's stage repertoire at the time. There's they include the instrumental jam, the stop and start sections. They were playing regularly between 68 and 70. And I don't know if you know Mose Allison is, he's like a jazz artist. So to start the record off with this, we've all been young and angry and felt misunderstood at some point, and I channeled most of mine through comedy and music. Did the arts come at the time in your life as well, or did you have some tough times in processing that youthful confusion before making your way into acting?
Oh no, I've found acting pretty early on. Yeah. When I was just starting out in high school, pretty much. Yeah, is when I started fooling around with it. But I had started with music prior to that. Actually, I started playing music before I ever did theater or whatnot. I started on piano like you do, and then I was in the orchestra. I played the bass in the orchestra, and then eventually I played the bass in jazz band, both the double bass, stand up bass, and also the bass guitar in jazz band. Yeah.
How many bands were you in before you, like, I mean, obviously you're in one now, but like, were you in the high school bands? Not like the high school band, like, the with the teacher and shit. Were you like in the garage bands and?
Yeah, I had a band when I was a junior in high school. I was in a band called Jehovah's Suspects.
Nice.
We played 4 songs we could play. We played Give Me 3 Steps,
Nice.
Communication Breakdown, Hey Joe, and then I wrote a song. I wrote a song called the Armadillo Song. I wrote that when I was 15. And I played it eventually I played it. I believe there's on YouTube. You can see me playing it on the Seth Meyers show. Um,
Oh, how about
but yeah,
that?
that was our repertoire. We had 4 songs.
Armadillo song, dude. That fucking rules. Why armadillo? Just is it like you're fascinated by them,
I
or
think
like
it was what I felt like at the time. I felt like an armadillo. It was an autobiographical ballad. Yes, I think back to your earlier point of dealing with the monstrosity of being a teenager. That was my chosen spirit animal, armadillo. Yes.
I love it. I love it. The Substitute. This is the first Who original on the record, and it's their 1966 single. All of the originals are from before Tommy. It deals, like we said, with the imposter syndrome, presumably about Peter's frustration at being sold to the pop music world as a mod by his managers. The lick was Pete trying to emulate Keith Richards' riff on the Rolling Stones' 19th Nervous Breakdown, and the title was inspired by Smokey Robinson's line, "Although she may be cute, she's just a substitute," from the Miracles' 1965 hit, "The Tracks of My Tears." Thoughts on the song? What do you love? What sticks out to you? Anything?
It's just such a satisfying riff,
Yeah.
and again, it it sums up this thing I was talking about earlier because in one sense, if you just look at it lyrically, it it's kind of just like it's a rather docile kind of gripe. I mean, it's not like it's not about like a world war or some Satan or something like that. It's just somebody kind of being mildly unhappy about things, but the ferocity of the music it seems like there's a giant event happening. So it's
Mhm.
this dichotomy of this massive music. Like a lot of times when I listen to music, uh, I can't help myself. I imagine like what kind of film the music would be scoring,
Yeah.
or like imagine a song playing over a trailer for a movie.
Mhm.
And I was doing that with Substitutes this morning, and it just seemed like it would be like the most frenetic, like some sort of actiony like situation. But then you listen to the lyrics, and they're really kind of. Um, do you see the point I'm making? How
Oh,
the
completely. Yeah.
whole discrepancy there. But I think they just have such a phenomenal sense of humor. I think the Who has one of the best senses of humor in the history of rock and roll, bar none.
What
They're-
makes you what like yeah, explain that. Like what do you when did it is it the smashing of the guitars? Is it Keith Moon? I mean, Pete Townsend seems like such a I mean the first time I have a friend who's a bass player, a very famous bass player, Tol Wilkenfeld, and I'm going over to her house to hang out and she's like, I'm on the phone with Pete Townsend. She's like, just give me a second. Oh yeah, okay. And then they're talking about like Vedanta, which is this old like religion that predates like Buddhism, and they're having this deep conversation. So that he's like a very grounded individual, and open. So like, what do you find so humorous?
well, first of all, just Daltrey's persona throughout, and as he's kind of like the master of ceremonies, um, he just seems like very. He seems very joyous. He seems very happy. He doesn't,
Yeah,
and the danger of the music doesn't feel like forced or contrived or like they're trying to intimidate you. If anything, they're inviting you into the music, and the force of it is it's like, oh, sorry, we can't help it.
yeah,
That's just who we are. But we're at least on the expanded version that I've been listening to, they're cracking jokes. the whole time. Now, I also, I would hasten to point out they're all four distinct individuals, and it's
Sure.
not like they have a group mind. And a lot of what these Hall of Fame bands kind of thrive on the tension and the differences of the personalities between the members. But I was born with a plastic spoon in my mouth. That's a funny line. That's like a joke. You know,
Yeah.
Substitute my Coke for gin. Like these are like this isn't what you're typically hearing in a rock and roll song. It's either about like and don't get me wrong, there's no shortage of sex in the Who's music, but it's
Of course.
usually something a little bit more hot blooded. You know what I mean? It's like or if you listen to like Black Sabbath, it's like imagine if the lyrics to War Pigs were about like making a sandwich or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
I dig it. I dig it. Going off of the thing about Pete Townsend, and trying to break away, dealing with the imposter syndrome that he dealt with. Have you ever been in a professional situation where you felt imposter syndrome? I mean, you've worked on so many incredible films and plays with so many incredible people. Has there ever been a moment where you're like looking around, you're like, fuck, I shouldn't be here?
One of my all-time top 5 favorite movies is Being There. And I often refer to myself as Chauncey Gardner. I am Chauncey Gardner. I just show up and people say, okay, be in the movie, go in front of the camera. And it's a little disingenuous, I guess, to say that because I have done a lot of work over the years, and I've studied what I do, and it's not like I show up unprepared or just on a whim, but I still identify so much with that character of just showing up. And sometimes I was saying this recently to somebody. If I look back at all the things I've done, all the work, my I guess my IMDb page or whatever, and I look at the list of all this stuff, I'm like, I didn't do all that. No way I did. How the hell did I do all that? I don't remember doing all that. Who
Right.
was that? There's no way that's even possible. And it's not like you feel like you accumulate necessarily. It's a weird thing. I say acting isn't something that you necessarily get better at the longer you do it.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes you don't, and it's not like a straight line trajectory. It's like you have to be vigilant all the time. I mean, and you hear that in music. I mean, how many acts, bands where you listen to their later records, and you're like, yeah, that's okay, but I really liked the first one. You know what I
Right.
mean?
You get
All the
lazy,
time. Yeah,
maybe.
or you lose your connection to like the real world because
Yeah.
you're so cloistered in this environment of being an artist, and you forget like whatever scummy little neighborhood you came from when you were a kid, and you've spent too long, driving around in a limousine, snorting coke or whatever. Not that
Lose your
ever
edge,
experienced
maybe.
in my
Yeah.
life,
What you
but
just said, Mike, do I have to say this is not exactly what you said, but Keith Moon, apparently on this track in particular, we have this note, became paranoid, insisting that it wasn't him drumming when they were listening to a recording of the song Substitute.
oh wow,
The band had gone, he said the band had gone behind his back and got another drummer. So John Entwistle had to say his paranoia is ridiculous. And,
wow,
and then on the recording, it says you can hear Keith screaming as he's doing a fill on the
yeah.
recording. So that's right. There's big energy, but man, Keith Moon, we're talking about big personalities. That's
Oh yeah.
legendary.
Well, he can. Yeah, there's some people that just can't fit inside themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
put.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Summertime Blues. So this 1958 Eddie Cochran song would have been something The Who and a bunch of other garage bands would have played in their early days. Although the sludge rock band Blue Cheer had a hit with their unique version of it in 1967, this was the first single from the album and the only hit that they had that Pete didn't write, and The Who made it their own as well. Thoughts on the song? What do you love? It's probably, in my opinion, one of the most, like, not popular outside of theirs, but they played. But it's like, it's one of my favorites on this.
I just love Entwistle's recitation of the lines when he uses that really deep voice, that deep, scary voice. It's so funny. But yeah, I mean, I think it just feels like this song. It feels like what's the thing when you need to revive somebody, like somebody's maybe perhaps taken too much of a certain substance. Oh, it's like a Narcan.
Yeah.
It's like, just every time I hear this song, I just like snap to. It's like it's just astonishing how much energy this band manifests. It's like it feels like the ocean or something. It feels like that powerful. And it's a situation where I'm always like, I can't believe there's just four of them. And yet, if you break it down and you listen to it, it's like, well, there's the bass, there's guitar, drums, singing. Yeah, that's four parts. Like, there's no tuba, there's no xylophone. That's what it is. But it feels like music that's made by like an army of people that are like going to take over your town or something. But it's just four of them. It's
Yeah.
just
On
and
a
the way
lighter,
Audrey sings, I'm like, I don't understand. And there's a lot of singers like this in rock. I mean, you could say the same thing of Robert Plant, but you're like, how does that guy like talk between songs? Like you expect the song to end and him to be like, "Thank you for coming tonight." But he's like,
Sound like RFK
no big
Jr.
deal. Like he can just make sounds like that and then act like nothing happened. It blows my mind.
Yeah. I want to do something really light with this. We're talking about Summertime Blues. What's the shittiest job you ever had? Pre-acting or or even acting, if you got like.
Well, there was one summer where I worked at a Taco Bell.
Yes.
Briefly. Yeah. Yeah, I was the meat and bean kid. So
Nice.
I was back because they didn't want me dealing with the public. So they had me in the back and I'd make the meat and the beans for the store. And when I went home, I smelled like the meat and the
Like
beans.
beating the
I'm not
beans.
sure
Yeah.
I did not ever not smell that way. So eventually I quit the job.
Nice.
And then the smell eventually a couple of years later went away.
Dig it. Dig it. All right.
Yeah.
Shaking All Over, written by Johnny Kidd. This rocker is about the feeling you get near a great looking girl. It's basically about getting a boner. Huge hit in England. Didn't make a dent elsewhere until Chad Allen and the Expressions recorded the song in 65. Arranged similarly to the original, but the chorus line was slowed down for effect, and there's a jam session obviously in the middle. I want to speak of shaking things up a little bit. Like, you've been touring complete REM tributes to specific records for the last couple years. How did that come about? And do you specifically block out acting roles during these tours, or like, how did it start?
This is just the whole genesis of this thing is just dumb luck. It's nothing. It kind of it's like a bridge that's been building itself as we cross it. Me and this fella Jason Narducci, every once in a while in Chicago, we'll get together and we'll just learn an album and play the album. He'll put the band together because he knows a bunch of amazing musicians, and he will pick a record and he'll say, "Oh, I think it should be these people." He calls them up. We get a venue. We play the record. And he literally he called me. I guess this was 2023. He said, "Hey, Mike, we haven't done a record in a while. You want to do one?" And I said, "Okay, what are you thinking?" And he said, "Well, it's the 40th anniversary of Murmur this year." And I said, "Oh, I really love that record." Okay. And then he said, oh, and I said we need to play it at Metro. Metro is this venue in Chicago that's like one of my favorite clubs on earth. And but he was worried that Metro's pretty big. It's like 1,000 capacity. And he's like, I don't know if we'll sell that many tickets. I was like, well, call the owner, Joe, and talk about it. And Joe Shanahan, who owns Metro, said, oh my God, it's the 40th anniversary of Metro. So it's the 40th anniversary of Murmur. It's the 40th anniversary of Metro. And the first band that ever played at Metro was REM on this very
No.
tour.
Oh,
Come
wow,
on.
man.
And as a matter of fact, this is a great story. At the time, Joe didn't even have Metro, but he had met a manager for REM when they were out on the road, and Joe had said, "If you ever come to Chicago, let me know. I'll set you guys up." And so, sure enough, this guy calls him and says, "Okay, we're coming to Chicago. Can we play your place?" And Joe didn't even have a place, so he's like, "Oh shit!" So I think he like rented the club that night, um, and REM showed up and played. So anyway, it was commemorating all of this.
Mhm.
We showed up, we played the show. It was supposed to be a one-off. It was just one show, that's it. And when we played it, Jason had done a record with Mike Mills, and Mike Mills showed up, and he was just going to watch, but he came up on stage and started singing with us.
He's the best.
Okay.
Mike's the best.
Yeah, and the show was sold out, and everybody was losing their goddamn mind. And after the show, we started getting all these inquiries from clubs, other places, saying, "Hey, can we have?" Which had never happened to us. We had played a bunch of records, and nobody had ever
Giving a
seemed to
shit like
care
this. Yeah.
in the slightest if we ever did it again. And but for some reason, this just caught fire, and then we put together this 9-show tour, and we did it, and then people are like, okay, what's next? And it's this weird thing. It wasn't our design or our intention, but I mean, we love doing it, so we'll keep doing it as long as as long as there's enough people that seem to care to come see it. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I watched one of the clips of you guys playing. I mean, it's incredible. And Mike is salt of the earth. Like I feel like everybody in the band, just from the outside perspective, is just watching them. It's like they carry themselves with such grace, even the way they've ended their careers. And they're like, no, nobody wants to see. And they're like, no, we want to see 60-year-old guys where we
try to
love
convince
you.
them.
So yeah, we really did try, dude. But
Yeah.
I'll take you guys rocking, man. You guys are really
Definitely.
doing a great job with it. It's really incredible, man. Really
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you. Well, and they participate. When we played the 40 watt last year, Bill Berry came up. We even got Bill Berry to come up and play. Not drums. He played piano on Perfect Circle. And Peter came up for a number of songs. Mike's been up a bunch. I think the one person I mean, I don't know, but I'm not sure that Stipe's ever gonna cross that threshold. But
Yeah.
that's cool.
Just keep doing it. Keep doing it because you love it, and it shows in the music. It shows in the way you guys are playing. Like it's really rad, man.
Thank you.
All right. Any thoughts on shaking up before we move over to My Generation?
The one thing I noticed, particularly about that song, is the reaction of the kids that are listening. It's clearly the song gets the biggest response of any song in the set, that they really struck a chord with the crowd. But yeah, I mean, I just think I just think they're so dynamic the way they play. It's like, and they're so tight. Like, I don't know how they remember all the changes. because the song would just change on a dime. And I
Yeah.
mean, you see that particularly with the next song we're about to talk about. But like it's like beyond. It's like in their bones. The music. It's like they're not even. They don't have to think about it. It just kind of happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is the kind of the ultimate place you want to get to. Yeah.
When you like speaking of like in your bones, like when you're playing, because you played some real people like that have existed, George Jones, Elvis Presley, for Christ's sake. I mean, you've the Runaways. Kim Fowley. Like, are you using like your instincts? How do you prepare to play a real person, somebody that existed and has been in public awareness?
Well, it's I mean it's pretty dead simple, honestly. You go to the source, you know. I mean, they fall into two categories. There's people that I played that are still alive, and people that are dead. So if the person's still alive, like in the instance of Kim Fowley, I actually met Kim Fowley and I hung out with Kim Fowley, and
Nice.
I'll never forget going to a Denny's with Kristen Stewart, Joan Jett, Kim Valley, and me at a Denny's in the Valley. And Kim
what?
Valley
Wait,
shows
wait.
up.
What did Joan Jett order? I gotta know. Please tell me it was like a moons over Miami or something.
Well, it wasn't a breakfast meeting, so it
Oh,
was like it was after work. I don't think she even got anything to eat, to be honest. But Kim shows up with these scrapbooks, uh, and I just sat there, and it was kind of his day in court. He got to tell me all about himself and his life, um, and yeah, I just kind of was recording that all in my mind. I mean, I didn't sit
yeah.
there and film him, but I was just staring at him like, okay, this is who you are. Then somebody like, if it's George or Elvis, they're incredibly well documented over
Yeah.
the years. So there's lots of footage to study. I was very lucky when I was playing Elvis. I had access to because uh, his friend Jerry, who is in the movie, is the character that Alex Pettifer is playing, Jerry Schilling. Uh, he gave me a CD of an interview that Elvis had done that wasn't even hadn't been. I think it was meant for a documentary, but they didn't use it.
Mhm.
So it was an interview that like nobody else had
Had
even.
ever seen? Yeah.
It was just a CD, just the audio, and I would listen to that all the time. Just same way when I'm getting ready for like these REM shows, I just listen to the music or listen to the interview over and over and over again and think about it. Same thing
Yeah.
when I did the Iceman. I did what anybody else would have done. I got those interviews he did on HBO, and I watched them.
Mhm.
I read the book. It's just like doing a project at school or something. You're just trying to get as
Do
much.
the research.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do the research. All right, my generation, dude. This is the song, bro. This and Magic Bus closing out the
Yeah.
6 song record. It's probably one of their biggest, songs. I mean, thoughts on it, thoughts on this 15-minute rendition of it, because it's fucking
It's a long
awesome.
one.
Yeah,
I
it's a
love
long.
I love the effect that Entwistle puts on his bass. The friggin' bass solo is just ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah,
I can't help it. Like I said, I'm a bass player, and
yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, people talking about uh, the solo of my generation and talking about Entwistle as being, for me, it was Entwistle, and it's a tie. It's a photo finish. It's Entwistle and John Paul Jones.
Nice.
And I
Yeah.
thought, and I know this isn't the record we're talking about, but when I heard "What Is and What Should Never Be" of Zeppelin 2, I thought that's the best bass playing I've ever heard in my life. But Entwistle on My Generation is it's like I said, it's neck and neck. But I love, like, the first time it goes into the medley, when it goes into "See Me, Feel Me," it's so. That's what I was talking about earlier. Is just that ability to just nobody's up there with like sheet music saying, "Oh, it's bar 25. We're gonna do this." They
Right.
just it's like magic the way they do it. They're so in sync with one another, and I it makes me, the thing about this record is it's like I want to see it. Like I want to
Mhm.
be able to see what they're doing because there must have been so much visual communication going on. I can't imagine how else they could do that. Just so effortlessly bend and change the music like that.
There's a clip. I'm pretty sure it's of the recording of them doing the next song, Magic Bus, and it's really rad watching because one, it's like Roger is just gorgeous. I mean, he's the coolest he's probably ever looked. They're so tight. They look like they're having fun. Yeah, I had found it earlier when I was doing research, and you were saying too. It's just like literally looks like they're in like almost like a large cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
2,000
wow.
people
I've
showed
never
up.
seen this.
I mean, I would just love to be watching this live. I mean, you're getting them at the peak of their fame. They've been playing together for years. They're just the like you said that and yeah, the energy just like it's a bomb. You're like waiting for it to explode and it's just a long explosion.
But the best part of Magic Bus is the way it starts. Just those sticks. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
that's like one of the most badass things I've ever heard in my life. Is that?
Yeah, dude.
But it's funny because, yeah,
It's another just long jam that features that Bo Diddley beat we've talked about on this
yeah.
podcast for years. Um, the version was this version was featured near the end of Scorsese's Goodfellas and at the beginning of Cameron Crowe's Jerry Maguire. You've worked with both of those writers and directors as well as so many other legends who've driven the bus, so to speak. If you have to jump on, if there was another magic bus that you could work with, another director, is there anybody like that you would love to be able to be a passenger with?
Well, unfortunately, the director I most longingly wanted to work with in my heart just passed away, Mr. David Lynch. I
Yeah,
I really wanted to work with him, but I love his work so much. But I did get to meet him a couple of times, and for that I'm very grateful. But like, yeah, in terms of I like most actors would be curious to work with Paul Thomas Anderson at some point, if that's ever a possibility. I'd love to work with Scorsese again in a
yeah,
more like in a film as
yeah,
opposed
sure,
because he only did the pilot for Boardwalk Empire, um, and then there's I mean I really have been fortunate to work with a lot of the directors that I would have wanted to work with. I guess I've worked with the great Guillermo del Toro. I would love to work with some of his compatriots, Inarritu or Cuarón, or that would be nice. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, I'd like to work with one of the most significant working relationships in my life, at least in film, is with Jeff Nichols. And when I met Jeff Nichols, he was just out of film school. So I'd love to meet the next Jeff Nick. Somebody who has I love being around for the start of things. As
sure,
the being a barnacle on the boat of somebody who's already halfway across the ocean.
sure.
Yeah.
If Let me ask you a question because I know we got to get you out of here, but it's like you work with so many great actors and directors and producers. Like, what's the best advice anybody's given you, whether it's about the career, whether it's about your instrument, or just even if it's just a throwaway, like, something that just stuck with you and who said it?
There's I've been doing this over 35 years. I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things, but
I know.
the one thing I think, because it's funny, I was at a restaurant the other night. I was having dinner by myself, and I was sitting next to this young couple who started talking to me, and they were both actors too, and they said, neither one of them were working, and they were kind of frustrated, and they're like, "What do you do when you're not working? Like, what do you do all day? What are your, you know, what are your hobbies or whatever?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't really have any hobbies. And they're like, "Well, what should we do? Because we're not working. We don't know what to do." I said, read. And the person who told me that was Werner Herzog. Werner Herzog said, "If you don't know what to do, read a book. That's the best thing you can do." And I think that's very sound advice, and particularly in this day and age,
Yeah.
to not, it's so easy now with the. No offense, I know we're on a technological platform here, but
Mhm.
to forget about that, because there's so much stimulus all the time, and that's really where I've over the years learned the most and grown the most, is from doing that. So I know it's not super sexy or anything, but that's what it is.
I dig it, dude. I mean, no, the written word, I completely agree with you. Can you do you have a Werner Herzog impersonation of having him saying that?
Not worth the shit.
You need to
That's
write.
the closest thing I can get to a Werner Herzog impersonation. So I've done 3 movies with him. The last one was called Salt and Fire, and we were down in Bolivia shooting this film, and it was me and a German actress named Veronica Ferris, and it was a story where I like kidnap her character, and I'm holding her. And she's not at this point in the film. She's like, "Why have you done this?" Blah, blah, blah. And it's the first time I'm talking to her since I've kidnapped her, and so we do the scene, and Werner's in the other room behind the door, and we finish the scene. He opens the door, and he comes in, and he stares at us, and he says, "That was quite lame." That was quite lame. I'd never gotten that note from a director before. It was deflating, debilitating note I'd never gotten in my life. Quite lame. But,
I love it. I
yeah.
love it. All right, let's get you out of here. Let's do the final songs. Well, thoughts on just the, did we already get your thoughts on Magic Bus? I think we kind of did, but I mean, just what a rad song. I mean, what a killer way to end this record, and you really feel like they did the job that they were setting in to do, which is to show the world that they're not they're artists, but it's like, dude, we can still kick you in the dick. Like, we still
Yeah.
can rock.
Yeah. Well, then they went on to do, who's next. It's interesting because I feel like towards the end, I think it's a Magic Bus. I was singing this, I was listening to it. You can hear "Won't Get Fooled Again."
Mm-hmm.
Hear like the foundation of "Won't Get Fooled Again," and that's what's coming with "Who's Next." That return, that they're, you know this is kind of the clover leaf that they're getting on to go back to. I guess I don't want to say go back to where they were, because everything's a step forward, but it was just so fascinating. I was like, Roger Daltrey could literally start singing "Meet the New Boss" over what they're playing right now, and it would be the same. But I don't even know if they were aware of that when they were playing it. Um, it's either towards the end of Magic Bus. I think it's towards the end of Magic Bus or My Generation, but I think it's towards the end of Magic Bus. I was thinking that when on my way over here when I was listening to it. Anyway.
All right, let's do the final questions. We'll get you out of here. By the way, you guys are playing in Brooklyn. I'm going to come to see you guys when
Oh, cool.
I'm really, really stoked to catch you guys live. I mean, from the podcast, I was always a fan of REM.
Yeah.
And a fan of yours, but it's like from doing this podcast, same with the Who. I mean, I Beatles, the Stones, the Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, like the Who for some reason never, like I knew Bob O'Reilly but it wasn't until I got to dig into the records, and now even digging into this is that where you really find the love for the band. And the same thing, like I said with REM, it was like I knew the hits, but really the hits aren't the good stuff, man. The stuff that's in those records, like those the deeper cuts, that's where REM is great. So
A lot of people, they kind of like, people love Murmur and they love Reckoning. With Fables of Reconstruction, some people start to fall off. They're like, oh yeah, that one, I Life's Rich Pageant for me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah,
this record is astonishing. Like, and I think it's one of the most complex, moody records that they've made. And I don't know, the thought that anybody would kind of step over it or something is very, very strange to me. I don't know.
completely. All right, back to Live at Leeds. What's your favorite song on this record out of the 6? I know.
Well, it's it's tough because I've been listening to the extended version. I have to say they play Fortune Teller on the extended version, and it's
Yeah.
freaking amazing because, and I love that song Fortune Teller, and I love the Rolling Stones version of Fortune Teller. It's actually like one of my favorite early Stones songs. And when I hear the Who say, "Well, we're about to play Fortune Teller," and they even say before they play it, they say, "Now you probably heard the Rolling Stones play this song, and you've heard these people play this song, but we're gonna play it." And then they play it, and I'm like, well, how different can it be? I mean, it's 4/4, Fortune Teller, blah blah blah, and it's like a whole. It's like what? Like that's
Yeah.
the same song, like and the fact there's something so ballsy about saying up front, we're going to play this old chestnut that the Rolling Stones, made famous, but like they're not embarrassed or ashamed or scared about it. They're like, but when we play it, we're going to play it our way. And I know that's kind of cheating because it's not on the version that we're talking about right now. But if you haven't heard it, you should hear it. You should
I'm gonna
hear
listen to it.
the Who's version of Fortune Teller. It is on the expanded version, and then there's a super expanded version, which is even longer. I mean, one of my favorite things, frankly, on this record is on the expanded version, the introduction to a quick one, because Roger Daltrey does this whole like stand up comedy routine that goes on for like 3 minutes, and he's really funny, and but it's really kind of naughty and kind of disturbing too because they're talking about like rape and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, you should check that out. But if I had to pick just off what we're talking about here, I definitely think the My Generation medley is astonishing. Like I said, just because it's so it's like alchemy, it's like some cauldron and there's bubbles coming up to the top and the bubbles pop and these different songs kind of come out like vapor,
Love that.
and it's just really I'm quite a fan of the I like some people like 2 minute pop songs. I like the long jams. Like
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I'm a deadhead, I
Oh,
guess.
dig it. Dig
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Another band that I got into from this podcast.
yeah.
And I've done 3
You done
festivals.
American Beauty yet?
We did. We had I think we had Al Franken. We had Senator Al Franken on, and then there's a comic named Phil Hanley that is obsessed and good friend of mine. And it's just like he came on. It was cool too because we made, I think, the last one, which was it Live Dead? Is that
Yep.
one? Yeah. So we did that, but we also we did half of that, and then we also did a record that's not on the podcast that he loved, which was the Cornell Show.
Okay.
We did that Cornell show, and it's great, dude. Somebody knitted. I want to go get it. Here, hold on. It's there. It's right here. But somebody, a fan of ours, knitted this because you'll know when I ask the last question to you. Hold on.
Yeah, we'll let you run here because I know we're
Oh,
past
that's all
time
right.
by a few minutes.
So what number is this specifically?
We're on
Live at-
170, 170, counting down to 1.
So, because the next question I'm going to ask you is, can you fuck to this record? And so one of the people wrote, made this art. It says, "In this house, we fucked a Cornell, May 8th, 1977."
That's funny.
Yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
so rad. So off of that,
Leeds? Oh yeah, you betcha. Yeah, I would
what
imagine.
would
So. Although I don't know, but you might feel a little. Uh, there's so many people. A live record. There's something weird about fucking to a live record.
Yeah.
Every once in a
yeah,
while, you hear a bunch of college kids cheering.
On display.
Yeah, but
what would
the music's hyper sexual. There's no doubt.
very very sexual. What would be, I think you've kind of already said it, but if you had to sum up this record, it's your elevator pitch to get someone to listen to it.
Oh dear Lord.
I know.
This will wake you up. Short,
That's
to the
perfect.
point. This will wake
You're
you up.
100% right.
Yeah.
Michael, what do you have coming up? Promote away. Anything you want to promote? We'll do it at the beginning and the end as well. But
Oh well, I directed a movie called Eric LaRue, and it's coming out April 4th. So keep an eye out for that. Eric LaRue, starring Judy Greer and Alexander Skarsgård. My directorial debut, and what else? I made a movie called Nuremberg. That'll come out probably in the fall. And then I did something for Netflix called Death by Lightning, which is like a 4-part miniseries. I'm not sure when that's coming out, but they're working on it. They're editing it right now. So,
dude, I know how busy you are. Thank you so much for coming on, man. We'd love to have you back when we got an REM record or whatever. But dude, this was awesome.
My pleasure.